when you saw me, I was just beginning to prepare for it. I was training. I had in mind what I wanted to do, and then there's ultimately what happened. So I started off thinking I was going to be competitive, and I wanted to be the first finisher, and that's what I set myself up for. And you know, then what happens is I'm on a very well prepared 197,000 mile bike, really well prepared. I didn't have a doubt that I was in good shape. New brakes, new rotors, all the wearable components, the tires. I even changed the fluid in the brake components. So I was good. Took off, and sure enough, 500 miles into it, I'm dead as a doornail sitting on the side of the road with not a clue what went wrong. And then I reached out on Facebook and said, I'm okay, I'm not going anywhere, I'm stuck, but I don't need to hear from anybody unless you're an Indian technician, and if you are, please call. And sure enough, my phone rang, and Chris, you were the first one to get me on the phone. And then, you know, just want to clue you in, it's Sunday afternoon. There's not an Indian dealer on the planet that is open, anywhere in any time zone. And I'm stuck, and the hope that I have is that I can get a tow truck that'll take me from, I don't even know what town in Texas, because you don't know where you are, because you don't have any reference, because you don't have any GPS like the normal world does, and you don't have waypoints that you're connecting in terms of towns. So calling the tow truck was its own unique fun. I had to flag somebody down and ask them, where am I? And they told me generally where I was, and then I flagged somebody else down, and I had them look on the GPS and tell me how you figure what mile marker I'm at. And that's what I told the tow truck, and he eventually found me. It took him 2.5 hours to find me. While I sat there, I worked through the issues, and I talked to Chris. A couple other guys called me. Another guy from Minnesota was very helpful, and everybody pointed to the same issue. The code that showed up and what went wrong looked like it was a battery failure. So the bike's going to run. Here I am sitting on a bike that's too old to make this run, and I've already ridden it harder than it should be ridden, and I'm dead on the side of the road, but I have a solution. So I need to convince the tow truck driver to take me to an auto parts store instead of the Indian dealer in Odessa that's not even going to be open for another 2 days. And that's what he did. With $100 in his pocket, he took me to an auto parts store. And sitting up on the bed of that tow truck, I changed the battery. And then everything lit up again. And then the clutch switch was still bad, so I dropped that open and bent it ever so gently back so that it was not in failure mode anymore, and then bolted it all back up, gave him another $100 to get me off of the tow truck. And then he let me go, at which point I was free to ride 2 hours back to where I broke down, call him in, and tell him I was starting again. And then I could start my day all over again. 6.5 hours behind, I lost 120 positions. 120 positions. And now I get to start my day again after a 500-mile ride and try to do the best I can with it. So I rode, doing what I do, into the rain. I didn't know it, but when I pulled over to the side of the road to make that I'm starting again phone call, I picked up a nail in the tire. My bad day just got worse. But thank you for the tire pressure monitor system that works, because I noticed it ever slowly creeping down. And when it got to 25 pounds, it was critical, but it was the hardest rain I've been in a long time. So all I did was pull over, hook my compressor up, and aired it up. Couldn't find where the nail was or whatever it was. It's just too messy, you can't do it. So I kept going, and I filled it up 3 times before I finally rode out through the rain to a place that was covered and elevated and dry enough for me to roll that flipping fender that you can't see anything in until I could find something that looked like it may be my problem. And I did. I found a little tiny pin nail deep embedded inside the tread. Pulled it out, used that tire plugger kit that I got, aired it back up, saw a couple other riders who stopped to help me because that's the generous community that is. And I said, no, I got this. You keep riding on. You guys look cold. Go get yourself sorted out. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to ride until I can't take it anymore today and see what I can do making up time. So I made it to the McDonald Observatory, slept on a concrete bench top table, which I love. Can't stand sleeping in grass, but you got to sleep outside, and you got to handle this with no support. So I did it, and I navigated best I could, didn't make too many wrong turns, and now I'm back on track. Next day, made it through Louisiana, slept, you know how they have those mobile buildings? It's one of my favorite places to sleep, is behind them. But they had a whole carport arrangement, and I was underneath of it, and I was living like a king. It was raining, and I was dry, and I was eaten alive by mosquitoes, but that's the least of your concerns. Next day, rolled into Panama City, Harley-Davidson dealership. No sense in servicing my bike. There's nothing they could do for me there anyway, but there was nothing this bike needed. With a battery change and a clutch sensor adjustment, I'm good to go. Now I'm over 200,000 miles, and I'm ready to keep rolling. I made back about 40 positions, and it's time to really start moving down the road. So I pointed myself up the road, went up into the Carolinas, and somewhere around Rome, Georgia, met up with a buddy that I'd ridden with 2 years before, George Jackman. And he's a very talented rider, very, very capable rider, and he's as fast as anybody I've ever ridden with, just because he handles his bike so well. So we rode together, and he pushed me to ride faster. I pushed him to transition faster. Neither one of us would let the other one sleep for more than 3 hours. So we really started to kick some butt and make some time. So through the Carolinas, we did ourselves some proud, and then we got to Davenport, Iowa in the top 20. Rolled in, he had his entire fork system rebuilt for the second time in 6 months. Not a durable machine. He had valve clicking and tapping. I thought the machine was going to come apart. It held together, but it had its own issues. Lots of other people had to stop for service and get them serviced. I just pulled into a car wash bay and went to sleep while they serviced his bike, woke up and kept rolling. So rolling out of Davenport, top 20. This is looking pretty hopeful. By the time we made it into South Dakota, I could hear other people around me, and I knew something was buzzing. And I look up and I see on the tracker that there are two people who are tough competitors sleeping as I'm ready to drive past them, which is my favorite thing in the world to do. It's my favorite thing in the world to do, to pass you while you're sleeping or pass you while you're eating. Pass you at a gas station, you're gonna catch me at some point, but when I can pass you and you're sleeping, I got you, and you'll never see me again. But I got on the phone and I called them up and I said, hey, Eric, Fed, I see you. Where are you? And they said, we're sleeping up at a campground. And I said, we're gonna ride together. I didn't ride this hard to come over here to pass you when you're sleeping. So get the hell up and let's go ride. And he says, there's a scenic mountaintop coming up somewhere. I said, I know where it is. Right near the Mount Rushmore overview. I said, I'll wait for you there. Be quick and let's go ride together. So George Jackman, Federico Arbolé, Eric Busquel, and myself all rode together for a little while. We're not the kind of riders who can ride together well for very long. So George had his issues, temperament got him, lack of sleep got him, the fast transitions, and all he wanted was a steak. Eric offered him a Taco John's burrito, and he said no. He cut off and went his own way. So it's Eric, Fed, myself. And we hung together pretty well. We slowed each other down really good for the first day because we were just enjoying being together. And then we had enough. Then we started pushing each other. You stop for gas, I don't need to stop, I'm going. I leave you. You tired? I leave you. You don't gas fast enough? I leave you. They left me, I left them. We leapfrogged across each other and we started pushing each other faster. And then we got separated at a point when we were leapfrogging around, and Eric wound up in front of Fed and I, somewhere around New Mexico. We already determined when we rolled into Spokane, Washington, 8 days in, first time I'd showered in 8 days, first time I'd changed clothes in 8 days. It was not pretty.
Did you get them off?
It was not pretty at all. But we rolled out of there knowing that we were 21 hours behind the leader. Billy Foltz was uncatchable. I can run a whole bunch of people down, but you can't run 21 hours down, not with 3 days worth of riding to go. You just can't do it. There's not enough time to make up, and Billy hadn't slept more than 3 hours on any night since he started. and he hasn't made any significant navigation errors. We've made plenty.